Hello there. Welcome into a Thursday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're streaming the show on either one of those stations' streaming apps. They are both free to download, they are both free to use, and they are both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics, mostly based around one hockey game. I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Producer Ray is standing by. If you allow me here to start the show, I'm going to get a little sappy, a little romantic about sports, because last night is the reason why we watch these things. And last night is also the reason why you watch the game from beginning to end. If you bailed early on it, you certainly are kicking yourself today. If you came in late, you can't fully appreciate what we saw last night from the Colorado Avalanche. But it was incredible, that hockey game. And yes, I'm speaking from the perspective of the result being what we set out. But if you're a Wild fan, I'm sorry. You're not the target demographic of this show. Most of the people listening are happy about what happened last night. And the reason you had to tune in from the beginning to appreciate it was because the first 20 minutes of that hockey game was a repeat of Game 3. It was Game 3 all over again, and I, quite frankly, was shocked. I had spent the majority of the show yesterday talking about how Game 3 should be fresh in the collective minds of the Colorado Avalanche, and I thought there's no way that they come into a game, especially one at home, and look like they did in Game 3. But that is exactly what they look like in the first period. Minnesota was desperate. The Avalanche were not. The Avalanche were out of sorts. And a recurring theme on this show, the goaltenders of the Colorado Avalanche, regardless of which one it is, are extensions of the team in front of them. So if the team in front of, in this case, Mackenzie Blackwood was bad, then guess what? Mackenzie Blackwood was bad as well. And he absolutely was. I didn't like a single goal that he gave up, including Mike McCarron's goal that was overturned. Every one of the 4 goals, 3 that counted, that Mackenzie Blackwood gave up were savable shots. And we can have that conversation moving forward on if Mackenzie Blackwood should get another shot here. Because he was poor in that first period, and so were the Colorado Avalanche. Here's Jared Bednar on the performance of his goaltender, but also being sure to mention the guys in front of him.
There was too much garbage in front of the net, and if that's the way they were going to play, like, we needed to handle some pucks clean, like through traffic and without traffic, and Blackie wasn't doing that. So I felt like this could be an opportunity to spark our group. Maybe we get a heck of a performance out of Wedge, which we did. But he, again, like, if I could have made changes to our lineup with healthy bodies and after the first period, I'd have pulled a whole bunch of guys, not just Blackwood.
I agree, but 2 things can be true. The guys in front of Mackenzie Blackwood could have done him 0 favors, and Mackenzie Blackwood could have given up 4 goals that were completely savable. Now, thankfully, one was overturned. And the way it went when that third goal, and I knew it would be, so it didn't really, when I saw it initially, I'm like, that's going to get overturned. So that didn't really impact how I felt about the Avalanche chances in that game, because I knew it would remain 2-0. But then Minnesota scored again. And my son, who was watching the show with me, he's been watching the game with me. It's quite the show. But he was watching the game with me, and he's been watching Avalanche hockey for all of 2 days. So certainly the performance by the Avs in the first period were not up to his supremely high standards. So he bailed. I was not out on the Avs' chances after one. I knew Jared Bednar was going to go to Scott Wedgwood. I think everybody knew he was going to make a goaltender change. And the way that the Avalanche came out in that second period, I'm like, they got a chance here. And they get one. My son re-enters the room, and I say that the Avs are winning this game. He didn't believe me, so he left. But I told him the Avs are going to win this game. And then the second period came to an end, and the Avs had only one goal on the board, and I was teetering. I thought Jesper Wallstedt, let's give credit where credit is due. Jesper Wallstedt was terrific in that second period. The Avs almost certainly would have tied that game had it not been for the way that Wallstedt played in that second period. But when the Avs, it was like the second period in game 4. The callbacks to previous games is something that was very interesting to me. Period 1 looked like game 3. Period 2 looked like game 4. But yet the Avs only got a goal closer. Now, I can't say that my confidence was super high at the time that the Avalanche were going to win that game. But I thought, if they just continue this on in the third period, they got a shot. 20 minutes, 18 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes without a goal. And I had resigned myself to the idea that we were going to have a game 6. And then with 3 minutes and 33 seconds left, two of the biggest storylines throughout this series reemerged at the most important time for the Avalanche. What have we been talking the most about? The fourth line of the Avs and Nathan MacKinnon. And they both came up huge. Jack Drury with the redirection, a very similar play as they tried in the second period, but Wallstedt was able to stop it. This time he wasn't. Gone into 3-2. And then Nathan MacKinnon absolutely tore the roof off of Ball Arena with this goal.
Avs need a goal to tie. Natchez now at the circle. MacKinnon. Short angle. He scores! The Mac attack is back, Jack! Goals in 6 straight for Nathan MacKinnon, and with 1 minute and 23 seconds to go in the third period. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, this is a tie hockey game.
Connor McGahey on the call for Altitude Sports, as heard on Extra Sports 1300. And if you were watching at the time and thought, that shot looked familiar, you had a little bit of deja vu, but there was something that was different about this shot for Nathan MacKinnon. It was the fact that there was a goaltender in the way. And Nathan MacKinnon postgame acted like the coincidence of that game-tying goal was not lost on him.
Saw a little daylight and just threw it there. Doesn't always go where you want it to. Happy it did then.
The look on his face told me that he remembered. And if you were on social media, everybody remembered. That was a carbon copy of the attempt he had in the gold medal game against the United States. But that goal was wide open, and he missed it. So the coincidence, the way the universe worked to give Nathan MacKinnon, I mean, think about this. The lowest point and the highest point of Nathan MacKinnon's year occurred on the same spot on the ice. Same opportunity, same shot, same angle, everything. Many of the same personnel on the two teams from what I recall. But this having a higher degree of difficulty because there is a goaltender sitting near post doesn't do Canadian fans any good, but that is also why we watch sports. The redemption arc, if you will, Nathan MacKinnon having another chance in the same spot to play the role of hero, and this time he comes through. Not for country, but for club. And it's one of those shots that only a handful of players on planet Earth can successfully make, and it's Nathan MacKinnon is one of them. So the game goes to OT. And I have had a number of people come up to me today or text me and say, I knew the Avs were going to win when it went to overtime. I did not share in your confidence. Because as much as the Nathan MacKinnon goal looked like the fates were interceding, that the universe was tilting in the direction of the Colorado Avalanche. Overtime hockey, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, is the universe being at its chaotic best. It is random as hell. So even if I'll tell you what I did think going into overtime. I did think that the Avs were going to tilt the ice. I didn't think Minnesota was going to tilt the ice back. But if you watch hockey long enough, you've seen teams completely outplay their opponent in the overtime, and it's a bounce, it's a deflection, it's something goofy, and the team that quote unquote deserves to win loses. That's where I was at. I thought that the Avs would control the overtime period, but the possibility was still there, despite everything that's happened, that the Minnesota Wild were going to win that game. And the Avs did control overtime, but they did not have that bad bounce go their way. And the sequence that ended up winning them the game was not a lucky bounce either. It was the Avalanche outworking and outplaying the Minnesota Wild. And here's how it sounded.
Into the zone, Kaprizov all the way through. Colorado got a piece of it, picked up by Kelly. Angles it off the near side boards. It's Natchez. Natchez towards the net, wants to wrap around. Natchez, far circle, Natchez. One timer, Kulak. He scores! And you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because this series is over.
Brett Kulak, of all people. You know what it reminded me of? Darren Helm, circa 2022. Game 6, a closeout game, second round of the playoffs, coincidentally, but that game was against the Blues, and Darren Helm takes the puck off of the bounce on the glass with less than 6 seconds to go and wins the Avs not only the game but the series. It had that same feel to it. The reaction of, and I think you got it on Connor's call there, like it was such a frenetic sequence in a way, and your eyes were drawn to Marty Natchez. You had to do like a double take, or at least I did. Who was it that scored that goal? 27? You're racking your brain. Wait, that's Brett Kulak. Brett Kulak, of all people, wins that game for the Colorado Avalanche. The 16th different goal scorer in this series for the Colorado Avalanche, tying an NHL record. Of course, it was Brett Kulak, one of the 3 remaining guys on the Avs roster who hadn't scored a goal yet. But let's give Kulak deserves a ton of credit. Let's give Marty Natchez his flowers as well, because Marty Natchez wasn't even supposed to be on the ice to set up Brett Kulak. Here's Natchez after the game.
I just saw it going. We're coming back in our zone, and we had 4 guys, so I was like, might as well jump there. I don't care. So yeah, it worked out.
It did work out. I love how matter of fact so many members of the Avalanche are. It worked out. It did, Marty, didn't it? Not even supposed to be on the ice. The Avs were a man down. And Marty Necas is like, I'll jump out there. And he ends up setting up the game-winning goal. Incredible. Incredible last night from the Colorado Avalanche as they win Game 5 and the series with the 4-3 overtime win, rallying from 3 goals down. Love to get your thoughts, what you were thinking in those moments I just went through, or your overall takes on the game. 719-247-1313. This is where we're living today. Let's talk Game 5 on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Territory Days celebrates its 50th anniversary in Old Colorado City, May 23rd through the 25th. You can enjoy live music, great food, a beer and wine garden, vendors, gold panning, and more. And admission, it's free. Territory Days is sponsored by Great Clips, Kingdom Builders, Family Life Center, and Huberger Subaru. Celebrate Memorial Day weekend in Old Colorado City with Territory Days. Now, I said yesterday on the show that if Nathan MacKinnon was the best player on the ice, the Colorado Avalanche would certainly win that game. I don't know if you could unequivocally say Nathan MacKinnon was the best player on the ice, but he certainly did something that only one of the best players on the ice could do with that goal. But what stood out to me about Nathan MacKinnon was not actually the goal that he scored. It was what he said in the post-game press conference that speaks to the mentality of this Avalanche team.
The good news is we were down early and we had time to come back. It wasn't too late to come back. And, we figured it's a long time for someone to hold a lead against us. We have confidence in our game. We could get it going. I felt like we just needed to survive that first 10 by them. They were pushing hard. That was fun. A lot of fun.
We thought it was too long to have a lead on us. That's something that is prevalent in soccer, the idea of scoring too early and having to defend that lead for the rest of the match. It's difficult to do. So what Nathan MacKinnon is saying has some truth to it, but what sticks out to me is just the confidence that this team has to turn it around like that and say, like, almost Minnesota having the start they did is actually a bad thing in a way. Right? Or the idea that if they just survive the first 10 minutes, they'd be good, even though they were down multiple goals. And it's the type of confidence that comes from a core of players who have won a Stanley Cup before. And it comes from an entire team of players who prove themselves to be better than everyone else throughout the season. Like, we could talk about the President's Trophy curse and the randomness of hockey and why teams that win that trophy don't win as much as you think they would. But the confidence that winning that trophy brings, that's real and that exists. And the Avalanche have it. They know that they're going to be able to come back in these kind of games. But the mentality of this team, and I think a lot of it has to do with the other team that we were recently covering pretty closely in their respective playoffs. Like, it's just between the Nuggets and the Avalanche, it's just such a different feeling. The mentality feels different, and even if they say similar things, one team you don't really believe it. With the Avalanche, you believe it. As if you just heard Nathan MacKinnon say that, I think your first reaction would be like, really? They got the lead too early on you? But then you're like, oh, it's Nathan MacKinnon. It's the Avalanche. It's the way they think. On the subject, too, of belief and mentality, I don't know what prompted this line of questioning for Jared Bednar, but I do think it brought forth a very interesting response from Jared Bednar, because the overall picture here is that the Avs were expected to beat Minnesota. They're expected to beat everyone. And if they didn't come through, and game 3 is really the only example of this we have currently in the postseason. I mean, the amount of criticism that is directed at the Avalanche when they don't perform at this spectacular level. But Jared Bednar kind of speaks to the mentality of this team as well, on the idea of it being cup or bust for the Colorado Avalanche every single time they hit the ice.
I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't think our players would want it any other way. I don't think the players that join our team at the deadline, the guys that have been here for years, would want it any other way. Now, you're leaving yourself open to a lot of criticism, because it's always just like cup or bust. And every time you lose in the first round, second round, whatever it is, people are going to get on you because you didn't win the cup. But I'd still rather be fighting for that, like having earned that type of reputation because of the way you play through the regular season and the group that you put together as an organization and the high expectations, rather than, well, let's just try and make the playoffs.
And if you were on social media after the first period, a lot of people were calling for Jared Bednar's job. And this happened after game 3. People all of a sudden questioning what Jared Bednar was doing. Is he the right coach? I mean, the standard for this franchise is so high, and it predates Jared Bednar. Right? The Nuggets have gotten to this point. The Rockies have never been at this point. The Broncos and the Avalanche live here. That anything less than being one of the best in the league is completely unacceptable. Even though the Avalanche went through a pretty long stretch where they were far from one of the best teams in the league. But you show up in town and you win a Stanley Cup. That's what starts it. And there was another point that Jared Bednar made at the tail end of his answer. Still saying, like, look, if we don't perform moving forward, he said, we're only halfway home here. This is the halfway point of the Avalanche in the playoffs. If they stumble, especially with the way that Gary Bettman sets up these playoffs, the pitchforks are going to be sharpened and the torches are going to be lit if the Avs go through all of this 8-1 in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, look as dominating at times as they have looked, and beat one of the top 4 teams in the league in just 5 games, and they turn around and lose to Vegas or Anaheim. That's going to be viewed as a failure, and people are going to be calling for Jared Bednar's job. I found a tweet of mine from last year around this time, because it went a different way, where I said Jared Bednar's going to be on one of the hottest seats in the NHL next year with the way that their season ended against the Dallas Stars. Now, I think some of that heat got taken off of him when he fired Ray Bennett to basically hold up, hey, it's special teams that is the problem. But the Avs came out, like a wagon right out of the gate, and there wasn't any time to really get into that. The Avs just took off from the beginning of the season and never looked back. But that's the reality. They fall short at any point, whether it's this series, the next, or the one after that. It's going to be right back to Jared Bednar's not the guy. Only one championship with Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. I mean, and the reason I bring this up, one, it's, it takes a special mentality that Jared Bednar clearly has to embrace that like he does. But it's also a tremendous amount of pressure. but we don't want it any other way. And also he mentions the guys they brought in at the deadline. 3 of them that were traded for this season are guys that scored game-winning goals in the series. Kadri, Waugh, and now Brett Kulak. The guys that Chris McFarland has brought in are not just because they're better than what the Avs have at that particular position. Although you could argue with most of his moves that they are better players that the Avs have now. But it's also because of what Jared Bednar mentions, that they embrace the challenge, they embrace the pressure, they want it. They want it to be cup or bust. Nick Waugh played in Toronto, played in Vegas where they won a title, and that's another fan base that only wants Stanley Cups. Kadri used to be here. Brett Kulak, it comes from Edmonton. I mean, where these guys were previously is not a coincidence. It's the type of players that Chris McFarland and Jared Bednar want on their team. And they've come through. Be hard-pressed to find a guy, I guess Mackenzie Blackwood last night, but outside of that, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that in these playoffs for the Avalanche that is consistently lacking. 16 different goal scorers tells you everyone's pulling in the same direction and everyone's contributing. 719-247-1313. Let's talk the goalie situation. Blackwood gets the start, only gets a period. Are we going to see him again next round or the round beyond that? We'll converse next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. excuse me, Switchbacks FC back at Widener Field this Saturday night at 7. Why couldn't I do this during the commercial break? They are taking on New Mexico United for Salute to Service Night. You could get your tickets at switchbacksfc.com, or you can win them from me right now. The 13th texter to text Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313 will score 4 tickets to the Switchbacks and New Mexico United Saturday night at Widener Field. Got a text in here, and Ray will give us the rest of the text here momentarily. We are aware, or have been made recently aware, of the signal issues that are being had on Extra Sports 1300. This is where we are pleased to be simulcast on KVOR as well. So if you're having, obviously, while I'm talking, I can't check in and see if it's getting better, worse, or staying the same. It's a power issue. I won't bore you with the details. But if you go down the dial to 740 KVOR, I am not aware of any issues there. So, but sorry about that. Our engineers are certainly working on that. What else do we have on the text line, Ray, regarding the Avs last night?
Ryan, you got to give Biz some credit. I'm still laughing at his post-game interview with McKinnon while wearing snorkel gear, Scott and fluorescent.
Yeah. Biz, I really like Paul Bissonnette. I think he's funny. I like that TNT crew with one exception. That was pretty funny. He put on the snorkel gear. Obviously, the viral video that went around showing Nathan McKinnon swimming laps in the hotel pool, wearing flippers and a snorkel. It's to get the lactic acid out of their joints and their legs. I think Nathan McKinnon maybe took it a step too far, kind of goofing around. I think that's why he was wearing that gear. But Biz was wearing those, wearing the snorkel, and Nathan McKinnon couldn't even answer his totally legitimate questions. But one thing I didn't like, and it was from the person on the TNT panel that I could do without, starts asking him after one of the most epic comebacks in Avalanche history, in NHL playoff history. He's asking him about the pool. Like, the Biz thing was funny, but that was to just get a laugh, and then Biz asked him like a real question, and then it just evolved for the first few minutes of the interview into Nathan McKinnon having to answer for his flippers and snorkel. But that bit from Biz was pretty good. I really like the TNT. It's a shame that Turner couldn't pony up for the NBA rights and everything like that to keep it, because I think Turner does as good of a job as any network does covering sports, and their hockey crew is no different. 719-247-1313 if you want to jump in on the conversation after the Avs 4-3 overtime win to end Minnesota's season. It's got to make you feel a little bit. Let me ask you, Ray, do you feel better now about what happened with the Nuggets because a Colorado team beat a Minnesota team?
The Nuggets played?
That's kind of where I'm at on it, just with the answer being no. Yeah. Like, what the Nuggets did was bad. Mm-hmm. What the Avalanche did was good. It doesn't make any difference to me. I guess it would be worse if you have people in your family who are from Minnesota. You may not be able to be around them for long, but I kind of look at them as two different entities. And because the Avs have done what they've done, it doesn't make up for the Nuggets doing what they did. But I think a lot of people are reveling in the fact that Minnesota and Colorado are now even after their 2 playoff series. What's Jared Bednar going to do now with the goalies? Gave Mackenzie Blackwood the start last night, and I thought yes, the guys in front of him certainly let him down. And I've said that the guys in front of the goalie are more important than the goalie. But Mackenzie Blackwood was bad. I said yesterday that I expect Scott Wedgwood to be the game one starter against either Vegas or Anaheim. I legitimately, unless a game 3 happens again, and you might say, well, it won't, but also game 3 happened again in the first period of last night. So never say never, but barring that kind of a scenario, I don't know if we see Mackenzie Blackwood again. And I just don't think, and I'm not trying to take, because he was fine when he came in and relieved Scott Wedgwood in game 3. He was fine. And he was fine after that. This is not about, Scott or Mackenzie Blackwood is terrible, but it's now the Western Conference Final. Okay, even though it's kind of weird because of the way that the NHL playoffs are set up, this is the bigger stage than the last round. It's not as good of a team, but it's a bigger stage. And I just feel like you did the Blackwood thing. You gave him some chances, but more importantly, and I think the way that Jared Bednar phrased it was important when he was talking about the two goalies. That part of the reason why he was going with Mackenzie Blackwood, even though he wouldn't outright say he was going with Blackwood last night, was about fatigue for Scott Wedgwood. The mental fatigue as much as the physical fatigue. Well, now we're past the halfway point. You've given Scott Wedgwood ample time to get right mentally and physically. I think we saw a mentally and physically right Scott Wedgwood in the last 2 periods in overtime last night. This is it's more about who Scott Wedgwood has been versus who Mackenzie Blackwood has been. It's that I want to see Scott Wedgwood in goal in these games that are bigger than any that the Avalanche have played to this point. But the first time I have Jared Bednar totally figured out when it comes to the way he handles his goalies is going to be the first time. He may not agree with what I'm saying here. But for me, it's Scott Wedgwood game 1 against Vegas or Anaheim without question. And barring a really rough night in this upcoming series, I don't see how Blackwood gets a start. I really don't. The one scenario that I kind of thought, well, maybe he might give Blackwood one more game here is if the Avalanche take complete control of the Western Conference Final. And they're up like 3-0. And you throw out Blackwood in game 4 going for the sweep. Lower stakes anyway. I thought for a minute that maybe that would be the situation to get him in there, but now you have to really start thinking about what's going on the other side of the bracket. The other side of the bracket, Carolina is just laying waste to the entire Eastern Conference. Rest this time of year is a weapon. If Carolina, and I guess what you have on your side is you have the ability to, find out. Maybe Montreal or Buffalo gives some resistance to Carolina, and that series goes longer than 4 games. But I think you have to keep an eye on Carolina, and you have to make sure that you're not, in some ways, voluntarily extending your series when Carolina's making light work of everybody. So I think Jared Bednar has been very, not just kind of making it up as he goes. I don't want to say that, because Jared Bednar is very purposeful in the lineup decisions he makes. But I think he's very much taking it on a day-by-day basis. And as each day goes by, you get new information. Maybe it's the play of Scott Wedgwood that you don't love. Maybe it's you get a huge lead in the series that maybe you didn't quite expect. Maybe Jared Bednar doesn't think that the Avs are going to be able to get a 3-0 series lead against either Vegas or Anaheim. And then that information might change his mind. But I also think what's going on with the Carolina Hurricanes and on the Eastern Conference side of things is the new information that can come in. But as we sit here today on Thursday, May 14th, not even knowing when the Anaheim-Vegas series is going to be over, I think it's Wedgwood game 1, and there would have to be some borderline extraordinary circumstance in order for Jared Bednar to go back to Mackenzie Blackwood. Now, in saying that, he just might, just to spite, because I don't think I'm alone in this. I do think Jared Bednar deserves, I know last night didn't look great, but he was decisive and he moved to Scott Wedgwood when he needed to. But when he has switched back and forth between the goalies, it's worked every time. It's when he's kept in the same goalie for a little while that maybe something goes a little bit wrong. But I would have gone back to Wedgwood last night before the game started. I would have made him the starter. But hearing Jared Bednar talk about the way he's handling the goaltending, I understood why he went to Blackwood. But one period in, you put back in Scott Wedgwood and he performed. Game 1, I have no doubt about. It's going to be Scott Wedgwood. Beyond that, it will be taken day by day. 719-247-1313. Back to Wedgwood permanently. Want to give Mackenzie Blackwood another shot? Give me your thoughts on the Avs goaltending situation moving forward. As far as the other series goes, tonight it's Vegas and Anaheim. It's at 7:30 if you'd like to watch. Vegas wins, series over. And I'm thinking, and this is just me spitballing here, Sunday, even if Buffalo and Montreal goes to a game 7, it's, they did this with the overlapping rounds with the Avs last time. Vegas wins tonight. Sunday, if there is a game 7 Saturday afternoon, maybe Monday, Tuesday. I don't think the Avs are going to have I don't think the Avs are going to have the break they did between the Kings series and the Wild series. I could say that. And that brings up another question. Did you post that, Ray? The question about Anaheim and Vegas? We'll ask the question. Do you want to play Vegas or do you want to play Anaheim? Now that we can do this kind of thing because the Avs are definitely through to the next round. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Nathan McKinnon. That's it. That's what we're talking about here on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Welcome in. Appreciate you stopping by. Shouts to those of you watching the show anywhere you scroll while you are on whatever social media platform you choose to consume this show on a daily basis. If you don't mind liking, subscribing, following, and dropping a comment. Maybe not all of them. Just pick out the one that you'd like to do. You can also reach out via more traditional means by calling or texting the show at 719-247-1313. We're talking Game 5, a crazy, wild, remarkable, amazing performance by the Colorado Avalanche that started off as poorly as you could possibly imagine. But ultimately, when the Avs needed it, Nathan MacKinnon was there once again with the game-tying goal in a shot that not even Nathan MacKinnon during the Olympics could make, let alone most of the players in the NHL. That's an unnecessary shot, and I'm sorry. But not many guys are making the shot that Nathan MacKinnon did, with the stakes being what they were. And this stat that has made the rounds here that I find to be quite amazing. One, the Avs had a 1% chance, 1.3% chance of winning that game once they fell behind 3-0. But how about this from the NHL? Nathan MacKinnon has scored a goal in 46% of his career playoff games. Remember, there was a time where people questioned whether Nathan MacKinnon was a playoff performer. I remember that. I think that narrative died in 2021. Or after it died in 2022. The last time we talked about that was 2021, because Nathan MacKinnon, as I recall, did not come up big for the Colorado Avalanche as they were eliminated by Vegas. But for his career, I don't even know if it was earned or fair that narrative surrounding Nathan MacKinnon at the time. But certainly once 2022 came around and beyond, we haven't had a discussion about Nathan MacKinnon maybe not being a playoff performer. And I don't mean we as in you and me. I mean we as in the hockey public, because I've heard it. MacKinnon has scored a goal in 46% of his career playoff games. That is tied for the third highest rate in NHL history with Craig Simpson, the only two players that have a higher percentage than Nathan MacKinnon in terms of the percentage of playoff games in which they score a goal. Mario Lemieux and Mike Bossy. I know the gold standard, the name you always want to be mentioned with is Wayne Gretzky when it comes to hockey. Wayne Gretzky's not even on that list. When you're talking about playoff hockey, Bossy's the big one to me. Like Bossy maybe isn't talked about like Gretzky or like Lemieux or some of the other greats, but in terms of what he did in the postseason, as good as they get. That's the company that Nathan MacKinnon is with. And by the way, he carried that kind of a percentage or somewhere close to it when he sat at the podium after the Vegas series in 21 and said, I've been in the league going on 9 years and I haven't won bleep. Hasn't been his fault. He's done his part. But if you understand Nathan MacKinnon's journey here, as you do, you'll understand why Nathan MacKinnon was borderline giggly about the stat where 16 different goal scorers scored in the series for the Avs.
It just shows you need literally everybody to win, even a series in this league. It's so difficult, so up and down the lineup. I saw before the game we have 16 or 17 guys with goals. Was that your first one?
Yeah.
So another guy with a goal. So, I mean, that's a great stat. That's the stats you want to see, team stats, and everyone's chipping in.
This guy, for still the majority of his career, has not sniffed a Stanley Cup. So what you're hearing there, and he was talking with Brett Kulak. It was Kulak and McKinnon who were sitting together in the post-game press conference. That's who he was talking to. But that emotion that you get from Nathan McKinnon and that guy, whether it was on TNT or, in the post-game press conference or on the ice, was smiling more than we ever see Nathan McKinnon smile. He loves so much that performance from the Avs, not just in that game, but in the series. And it's the type of emotion that someone has when they spent so long without even coming close to winning a title. And without feeling like the team they have is capable of winning a title, which has been the case for certainly the early years of Nathan McKinnon in Colorado. And this guy is just wired to win. Wired to win with his performance, but also wired to want to win. In any way that the Avs can do it, Nathan McKinnon's good with it. But the Avs don't win without Nathan McKinnon being a big part of what they do. And last night was a perfect example of it. There were other stars. There were other heroes. But in one of the biggest moments of the game, it was Nathan McKinnon again. When are we going to reconvene our council or whatever you want to call it to discuss who the best player in the world is? Because Nathan McKinnon is on the list of one of the most efficient playoff goal scorers we've ever had. So he performs in the postseason. He led the league in goals this year. He's a Hart Trophy finalist again. When are we going to reopen that conversation? And Connor McDavid might be more talented than Nathan McKinnon. I would argue he's talented in a different way. But some people might argue Connor McDavid is a better player. But I'm not saying hockey has ring culture like the NBA does. But the playoffs matter. The way you play in the postseason matters. Your playoff success matters. And this guy is 8 wins away from his second Stanley Cup. Connor McDavid has 0. Is that all on Connor McDavid? Absolutely not. But at some point, all of this stuff that Nathan McKinnon is doing in the playoffs, leading to the success of the Colorado Avalanche, it has to be taken into account, and it has to be enough for Nathan McKinnon to overtake Connor McDavid. And this is a race between the two of them. Right? And we have this conversation when it comes to the NBA with Nikola Jokic. Like, there's a chance that Nikola Jokic in a year or two is surpassed by Victor Wembanyama as the best player in the world. That doesn't mean that Nikola Jokic can't reclaim that. I think with the age gap, it's difficult for Nikola Jokic to do that, but it's still possible. As long as these players are still playing, it's an open conversation. And I'll give you the best one, the NBA GOAT debate between Jordan and LeBron. They're just, taking the temperature along the way. There's always something that LeBron James can do between now and the end of his career to have an argument to be the GOAT. I don't see those things happening, but it is theoretically possible. And because Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon are so close together in terms of their age, it's a true race. But it's a race that Connor McDavid got way out in front. And every year that goes by, Nathan MacKinnon is closing in and closing in and closing in. And I guess I'm just asking the question, at what point, what has to happen for Nathan MacKinnon to surpass Connor McDavid as most people's vote for the best player in the world? This guy should win the MVP, in my opinion, but it has every chance to win the MVP along with McDavid and Kucherov. He led the league in goals, something he's never done before. So he's adding to his game. He's doing things that even he hasn't done. And he is not just one of the best playoff performers going in the NHL right now. This stat says he's one of the best ever. At some point, all of this has to add up, as brilliant as Connor McDavid does. And as much as you lament how much the Oilers organization has let him down, these are team sports. We understand that. But at a certain point, especially if Connor McDavid's chances of winning a Stanley Cup are decreasing starting this year, and Nathan MacKinnon gets another one, maybe another MVP, at some point, he's got to pass the guy. And I think it's these playoffs. If Nathan MacKinnon continues this, and he wins an MVP, and he wins a Stanley Cup, because he's going to win the Conn Smythe if he continues at this rate. The guy scored a goal in every game of these playoffs. If he continues at this pace and the Avs win, he's going to win a Conn Smythe. Hart Trophy, Conn Smythe, Rocket Richard, and he will be viewed as one of the best playoff performers in NHL history while doing all of that stuff. I think that all maybe if you take out one of those things, maybe it's not enough to pass Connor McDavid, but I promise you all of that stuff, we have to put Nathan MacKinnon above Connor McDavid at that point. And the thing that I love about this whole conversation is that it is a legitimate argument, and we're not trying to move, get rid of Connor McDavid, knock him off of his throne as quickly as we can. Connor McDavid has sat on that throne for years, but Nathan MacKinnon's always been there. That's the thing that I don't think people realize. Nathan MacKinnon's always been close by. In the NBA, everyone's just trying to push Nikola Jokic off of his throne. Like, this is the first postseason with Wemby. Can he get a couple more in before we do all that? But there's an actual debate in the NHL right now. And if Nathan MacKinnon checks all of the boxes I just mentioned, he has to be considered the best player in the world. Certainly was one of the best players on the ice last night. And the Avs needed him to be. His goal with about 90 seconds left in the game, forcing overtime, giving Brett Kulak, of all people, the chance to play the role of hero as the Avs eliminate the Wild 4-3 in overtime. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Avs on their way to the Western Conference Final. Who they will play, we don't know yet, but we might know late this evening as Vegas looks to close out their series with the Ducks. Games in Anaheim. Important to note. Vegas wins tonight. It will be Vegas in Colorado. Game 7, if necessary, in the Vegas-Anaheim series is Saturday afternoon. I think the answer to who would you rather play here is pretty obvious. I mean, if you're looking for the path of less resistance, not no resistance, less, it's Anaheim. Just is. Vegas has more star power. I think they have more depth. They have better goaltending. I think coaching is a push. Maybe a slight lean to Anaheim. Experience in the postseason, definite lean towards Vegas. Vegas is a more difficult matchup. But there is something a little bit unnerving about playing a team like Anaheim, who no one expected. If they beat Vegas, no one expected Anaheim to be playing in the Western Conference Final. I don't care how jacked up Gary Bettman's playoffs are. Nobody was picking Anaheim. And there would be something a little unnerving about that. But the more difficult matchup for a variety of reasons would be Vegas. And maybe if you're an Avs fan for a while, maybe there is something satisfying about the idea of knocking off Vegas after what happened in 2021. A lot of players for the Avs were around back then. Not a lot of players for Vegas were. Mark Stone, that's about it. Oh, Braden McNabb. That would be the other one. There's more, William Karlsson, but you get my point. Vegas turns over the roster a little bit more than a lot of teams. But there's a natural question that has to be asked after last night. And I've asked this question before. How is someone going to beat this team 4 out of 7 times? Talking about the Avalanche. Think about the series we just watched. Game 1, gong show. Avs were able to win that. And I think most people can agree if it's going to be a shootout, you'll take the Avs. So that's an easy one. If there's a series that will be that, you would take the Avs. Highest scoring team in the league this year, right? 2 of the games, the Avs dominated. Game 2 and Game 4. And now we sprinkle in the Avs taking a period off and still being able to rally from 3 goals down to win. How are you going to beat this team 4 out of 7 games? I don't want to fast forward to the end here because this has been a ton of fun. I'm just saying I don't know how a team beats Colorado 4 out of 7 times. They beat you in so many different ways. You see 16 different goal scorers in this series for the Avalanche. They're getting contributions from everyone. They're going to be the more battle-tested playoff, born team. You think that more so than Montreal, more so than Buffalo. Certainly more so than Anaheim. So there's just so many advantages that this team has over their opponents. And look, This is not me saying no one is going to beat them 4 out of 7 games, although that's kind of where I'm going. It's possible that the Avs could get beat 4 out of 7 times. I just don't know what that looks like. That's what I'm trying to figure out. That the Avalanche look like they did in Game 3 for 4 out of the 7 games in a series? Does anybody think that's going to happen? And last night, the way the Avs came out was surprising, right? Disappointingly so. But that's 1 period. Plus the 3 more in Game 3, that's 4 periods. Out of 16. And it cost the Avs 1 game. Tell me the Avs aren't going to have the desperation level required for an entire series? Of course they are. Now, they might let one go. They might let one slip here if they get out to a 2-0 lead against Vegas or Anaheim. Recent history will tell you, don't back the Avs in Game 3. If they're up 3-1, maybe you could say, don't bet on the Avs in Game 5. But this is the beauty of, hockey's postseason, basketball's postseason, most of baseball's postseason. You got to beat a team 4 out of 7 times. It's not just about that one day and whether you could be better than the team you're playing. You got to be that for 2 weeks. So Vegas, Anaheim, they have their pros and cons. I don't see how either one of those teams is going to beat the Avs in a 7-game series. And to just go one step beyond that, I don't see how Montreal or Buffalo will beat the Avs in a 7-game series. The only team that I think it's possible at this point that can beat the Avs is Carolina. And I'm still having a very difficult time figuring out what it looks like. The best I can come up with is Frederik Andersen, who has been, to his credit, the best goalie in these playoffs, standing on his head for at least 4 games. That's it. That's what that would have to look like. Again, possible, not probable. Because the Avs do have a little something to say in the matter of how good Frederik Andersen would look in a potential series. And then the way that last night played out, and I compared the Brett Kulak goal to the Darren Helm goal in 2022, which eliminated the St. Louis Blues. A very similar series, if you recall. Now, that one lasted 6. This one lasted 5, but there were certainly a war of words. There was some bad blood between the two teams. You remember Jordan Binnington throwing water bottles at Nazem Kadri. So that was a contentious series. That was ended by one of the least likely heroes that you could imagine on the Colorado Avalanche. But I remember at that time talking about the feeling that the Avs were kind of a team of destiny. They had that feeling about them. They eliminated the St. Louis Blues with a Darren Helm goal that he played off of the glass. The puck bounced off the glass to Darren Helm, and he shot it past Jordan Binnington to win a series. I mean, how do you not sit there after that game and go, yeah, I think it might be the Avs of the year? I think that was the moment. Whatever you believed about the Avs that year, I think that was the moment where you went, yeah, I think this is happening. Because it also showed, how much more depth the Avs had just 1 year later than they had in 2021 when they got eliminated by Vegas. I mean, that's where the work started with Chris McFarland, right? Lehkonen trade happened that year. Manson got Darren Helm at the beginning of before the season started. He said, oh, they're more built for this than they were a year ago. It's kind of the same deal with Brett Kulak. Brett Kulak, are you kidding me? Is the guy that scores the game winner? No disrespect. The guy has played in the last 2 Stanley Cup finals, but he wasn't there because of his goal scoring prowess. How do you not watch that goal and at the end of that game and go and have any other conclusion than I think it's the Avs year. I think they're going to win this thing. Take all the stats and the matchups out of it, like the way that game played out and how the Avs won it and who won it for them. How could you not go, yeah, I think the fates might have decided this thing. But look, I say that and we toiled through this series. Right? The discussion after game 3. Going into game 3, there was ample opportunity to talk yourself in and out of so many different scenarios. Like, to say that this series was never in doubt, that's a lie. There were moments where you felt uneasy about the Avs, and there will be moments against either Vegas or Anaheim or in the Stanley Cup final where you'll feel a little bit uneasy. And in those moments, what I would suggest is that you just ask yourself one simple question. Okay, a team beats the Avs that way on that given night. Can they do it 3 more times? It's becoming increasingly more difficult to say yes to that answer or to that question. Take your thoughts. 719-24-7-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Now that the Avs are on to the Western Conference Final, we can ask the question, Ducks or Knights? Who do you want in the Western Conference Final and for why? Your thoughts on our Facebook question of the day, read by producer Ray Dominguez.
From Brian, we just have Ducks. And from Todd, doesn't matter. The Wild was probably the best team that they will play.
I would say don't forget about Carolina. Don't forget about them. But Minnesota is a better team than Vegas, and they're a better team than Anaheim. Which gives me another opportunity to once again say, Gary Bettman, you are doing this wrong. This should have been the Western Conference Final, not the second round. And here's the remarkable thing about that. If this was supposed to be the Western Conference Final, right? If they seeded the playoffs correctly in the NHL, the Avs would have just won the Western Conference Final in 5 games. It was crazy. In one game, they basically no-showed. But to the commenter's point, on paper, neither Vegas nor Anaheim will be better than this Wild team. However, here's the great equalizer. Injuries, right? Because I was thinking about this too. Minnesota did not have Joel Eriksson Ek or Jonas Brodin. Okay, those are not insignificant losses. Okay, do they make a 2-game difference in this series? Or a 3-game or whatever it is? Math was never my strong suit. Do those 2 players completely flip the series? I don't think that they do. But is it over in 5? No, I think Minnesota gets one. I'll tell you this much. Eriksson Ek and Brodin are healthy and on the ice for the Wild. Avalanche don't come back last night and beat them. But I still think the Avs win the series. So the question that you have to ask going into whether it's a series with Anaheim or a series with Vegas, if those teams are healthy, are they actually better than Minnesota? And I'll tell you, Vegas is just as banged up, if not more so, than Minnesota was. But a fully healthy Anaheim team, with what they have shown in these playoffs, and look, they're going to rally. If they're going to get to the Avs, they're going to win back-to-back games facing elimination, which is a massive step forward and a massive accomplishment for an incredibly young Ducks team. So I think if it is Anaheim, if it's Vegas, if they are not any less healthy than they are right now, Minnesota is a better team than that Vegas team the Avs will be playing. If it does end up being Anaheim, and you're kind of getting a sense of where I'm at on this, I don't think it's going to be Anaheim. But if it is, they would be healthier. As long as they could get Paling back, who took that really dirty hit from Braden McNabb in the last game between Vegas and Anaheim. Anaheim's going to be way healthier, and they will have just knocked off a very good Vegas team. And I know the Pacific, everyone's down on it. There's still talent in that division, that just not enough. I guess is the way I put it. Collectively, not enough. But you would have, with how much Anaheim would have changed hearts and minds, I think deservedly so, if they pull this off and rally from 3-2 down to beat Vegas. You might have to wonder if Anaheim is better than a somewhat shorthanded Minnesota team. But we'll get into that if the time comes. If it's Vegas, which I think it's going to be, Minnesota is better. Not to say Vegas can't provide. I've seen Carter Hart have some pretty spectacular moments in that series. Like, Carter Hart is capable of stealing a game. Well coached with Torts. They have star players. But yeah, if the Avs are gonna finish off Minnesota in 5, how much longer would it take for them to knock off either Anaheim or Vegas? But Carolina is still lurking, and I would call them the final boss. I think the Avs are the final boss for Carolina. But Carolina's out there. Carolina, I think, is better than Minnesota. Better, certainly better than this version of the Wild. But that's in the Stanley Cup final. Western Conference final, TBD, or maybe TBA. Maybe they've already determined. They just haven't announced when the series would start. I think we'll get a scenario, whether it's Vegas, or if it's Vegas, obviously we will. If it's Anaheim, then I still think the NHL probably puts out a scenario on when that series will start. So we'll have some things to discuss tomorrow as we start to look ahead to the Western Conference final. Talked about Kulak, obviously. Talked about McKinnon. We'll talk about that at the top of the hour. But let's not forget, once again, the members of the Avs fourth line and what they contributed last night. Obviously, Jack Drury with the goal to make it a 1-goal game before Nathan McKinnon tied it up with 90 seconds left. But the guy that got things started, once again, Parker Kelly, who coincidentally is celebrating a birthday today. Scores a game winner and follows it up the very next game with a massive goal as well. And this for the guys that play on the fourth line continue. I mean, it's almost like Logan O'Connor is less effective than we expect him to be because he's not with the other two guys. And I'm not saying Logan O'Connor hasn't been impactful, but because of some of the shuffling that's gone on with Arturi Lehkonen out and Sam Malinsky, both of them were out again last night. I thought that was going to be the case. Had a shuffle. I'd really like to see Logan O'Connor back on that fourth line, but Parker Kelly being, again, the story, one of the big stories of this season for the Colorado Avalanche. A career year, to be sure, with 21 goals, and then he's followed it up with these last two goals that he scored in the playoffs. And I was looking at this on the salary cap table for the Avs, and this is also where having the fourth line that they do is such a good thing, because these guys also got locked up to long-term contracts. Parker Kelly signed through 2030 at $1.7 million. He's got 3 years left on his deal after this. Guy that scored 21 goals this season and has had 2 huge goals in the last 2 playoff games. Logan O'Connor, remember when they gave him an extension? And it was like, you sure about that with Logan O'Connor's injury? He's locked up a season beyond what Parker Kelly is signed up for. So 2 of the members of that fourth line are locked up for the foreseeable future. And I don't know where Jack Drury's head's at right now. How could he not want to be? I get it. You want to, when your stock is high, you want to make sure that you're maximizing your value. But man, if you're Jack Drury, how could you not want to stay with this team, stay on that line? But the fourth line did it again last night, as they have throughout this series. 719-24-7, 13-13. Take your thoughts on the Avs win last night. Well, I have a moment just to shift gears before the top of the hour. At 6 o'clock tonight, the NFL schedule is going to be released in its totality. We got a couple more leaks today, so take these with a grain of salt. But we know for a fact that the Broncos will be opening on Monday Night Football, first Monday night game of the season in Arrowhead against Kansas City. We have now Benjamin Albright of KOA in Denver, and I think a couple of other places are saying that the Broncos are going to Pittsburgh on Black Friday. So there's another window all to themselves that the Denver Broncos will be getting. And I say that because remember how every year we complain about the Denver Nuggets not getting enough primetime games? The Broncos are getting primetime in their own time slot. I don't know what Black Friday technically is because it is an afternoon game. And then we have also been told that the Broncos will be at Empower Field on Christmas, which will be a window all to themselves and another big day on the NFL calendar. So first Monday Night Football game of the season, Christmas, Black Friday. Broncos are going to be on those. The leaks that I'm seeing across the league, and I talked about this yesterday with the report that the season opener is going to be a Super Bowl rematch, which I think if you can help it, you absolutely do it. And they can this year because the Seahawks are playing the New England Patriots. But I really like everything I am seeing. I like, including for the Denver Broncos. You unseat Kansas City at the top of the division for the first time in forever. You go to the AFC Championship. You should be on Black Friday and Christmas and the Monday night opener. So we'll see how the rest of the schedule shakes out tonight. 6 o'clock, if you want to hear it rolled out in a very thematic way. Westwood One, our partners, will have a NFL schedule release special that you can hear on Extra Sports 1300 starting at 6. But Broncos, and there was another one, right? The Jets. We know that they're playing the Jets, right, Ray?
Yeah.
So, but we already knew that. But we know where that game was slotted. Where was that? Did you look that up? It's rumor and innuendo, but I think we had the slot reported for the Broncos-Jets game. I know that's, of all the games on the schedule, that's the one you were waiting on pins and needles to find out. What week do the Broncos get that showdown with Cade Klubnik in the New York Jets? When is it?
I believe it says week 14.
Week 14. So when we do the thing we always do, because it's just fun, and go through the schedule game by game and predict, that'll be a win. But I gotta wait and see who the Steelers quarterback is before I'm going to commit to
Yeah.
right?
Same thing with
If Aaron Rodgers is with the Steelers, which is still an open question, would you take the Steelers to beat the Broncos on Black Friday?
No,
Ray is a Steelers fan.
no.
No, you wouldn't. Okay.
I don't take
All
a
right.
lot of teams to beat the Broncos, but honestly, I think I just don't. Steelers aren't going to be the best this year.
They're not going to be the best.
I just have a feeling.
Hot take. Like not the best, like how they usually. And I'm not piling on. I'm
No.
just legitimately asking where they've been the last few years, or do you think the bottom falls out?
I think I'm not saying the bottom falls out. There's just so many questions. New coach, who's the quarterback? They did get a good receiver to be on the other end, DK.
They did.
But that defense is getting older.
Mm-hmm.
TJ's not TJ. Well, I haven't seen it in a while. I'm not saying bottom falls out, but if they don't make the playoffs this year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I wouldn't either. But still, Pittsburgh in a not saying Black Friday is a big time game necessarily.
Oh, if you're talking prime time, Steelers are awful in prime time.
That's true. But that's where it's a good thing that it's kind of not quite prime time because the game will be played in the afternoon.
Yeah, but still under those Black Friday lights.
Under the Black Friday clouds,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers may not be able to hack it against the Denver Broncos. So we'll see the entire NFL schedule coming up tonight at 6. And then, of course, we'll go through it tomorrow here on the show. Hello there. Glad to have you. Whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're listening on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are free to download, free to use, and sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. Love to get your thoughts on a day like this. I love to get your thoughts on any day, but today feels like a big day in our corner of the sports world. 719-24-7 1313. You could call or text in, or if you're watching the show, anywhere you scroll, you could drop a comment there as well. 3 stories, but they're all born out of one unbelievable at times game last night from the Avalanche. Here are the 3 stories that are driving the show. All right, story number 1 is the comeback itself.
Into the zone, Kaprizov all the way through. Colorado got a piece of it, picked up by Kelly. Angles it off the near side boards. It's Natchez. Natchez towards the net, wants to wrap around. Natchez, far circle, Natchez. One-timer, Kulak! He scores! And you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because this series is over!
Connor McGahey with one word from Mark Rycroft on Altitude Sports Radio, as heard on Extra Sports 1300. Last night was a game that you could only fully appreciate if you got in on puck drop and watched it the whole way through. Because the Avs, for the first 20 minutes of the game, looked like they did in Game 3. They had no juice. They had no desperation. They weren't clicking by any means. It was Game 3 all over again. And then they, like they did in Game 4, they dominated the second period. Yet, only a goal to show for it. And it took nearly 17 minutes of period 3 for the Avs to finally get it going in terms of scoring goals, where not Parker Kelly, he scored the first goal. No, it was Parker Kelly. Parker Kelly followed by Nathan McKinnon to tie the game, and then that goal from Brett Kulak, of all people. The 16th different goal scorer in this series for the Avs. It sends the Avs to the Western Conference Final. And it just, you're left with the question of, how does a team beat the Avs in a 7-game series? Like, how do you do that? The Avs won a shootout in Game 1. They dominated Game 2 and Game 4. They didn't have anything in Game 3, but you got to find 3 more wins for the opponent. And last night, the Avalanche were absolutely dead to rights until they weren't. And just a remarkable show. Like, we can't give them too much credit, because why are you falling behind the way you did in the first period? That's not good. But the way that they were able to battle back, I think, kind of encapsulates their mentality all season long, which is just, we're not going to let go of the rope here. We're going to keep pushing. And Nathan McKinnon said it after the game, that the feeling with the Colorado Avalanche was that the Wild had to defend their lead for too long. Like, this team is going, when it truly matters, not to diminish what happened in Game 3, but in terms of the stakes, there were almost none for the Colorado Avalanche. When the stakes are high, they will always keep pushing. And they end up scoring, 3 of their 4 goals in like a 10-minute span? Am I doing that math right? Probably not. but a remarkable comeback and win for the Colorado Avalanche to finish off the Minnesota Wild in 5 games. This, for many people, was the de facto Western Conference final. And the Avs got the job done in 5. This team, seriously, somebody tell me how anybody beats them 4 out of 7 times. Mention Nathan MacKinnon. Let's play his goal because that was awesome.
Avs need a goal to tie. Natchez now at the circle. McKinnon. Short angle. He scores! The Mac attack is back, Jack. Goals in 6 straight for Nathan MacKinnon. And with a minute and 23 seconds to go in the 3rd period. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, this is a tie hockey game.
Connor McGahey again there with the call, and the coincidence of where Nathan MacKinnon took that shot and the fact that he got it to go into the back of the net. Not lost on anyone. Almost the exact same spot as he missed a wide open net in the gold medal game against Team USA. I mentioned that last night was the type of game that reminds us, if we need any reminding, of why we watch sports. That Nathan MacKinnon redemption arc is another reason why we watch sports. Same spot, and now the lowest and the highest point of Nathan MacKinnon's year occurred at the same spot on the ice. I mean, that's just, can you script that? I said the easiest way or the most surefire path to the Avs winning Game 5 was for Nathan MacKinnon to be the best player on the ice. And I would say beginning to end, you can't say necessarily that Nathan MacKinnon was. But that was a big moment where the Avs needed a hero, and Nathan MacKinnon put on his cape once again. And now he has scored in every goal of this postseason. And he now is tied for the 3rd best goal rate. The percentage of playoff games career that Nathan MacKinnon has scored a goal, tied for the 3rd highest mark in the history of hockey. Mike Bossy, Mario Lemieux, the only guys that scored at a higher clip. This also in a season where Nathan MacKinnon won the Rocket Richard Trophy, and he may win the Hart Trophy. And I bring all of this up to say, if Nathan MacKinnon checks every single box, Hart Trophy, because he's going to win the Conn Smythe if he keeps at this, what he's doing in the playoffs, leads the league in goals, wins another Stanley Cup, we have to have the conversation again on whether he has surpassed Connor McDavid as the best player in the world. And I think the answer would have to be yes. All of this stuff has to matter at some point. That Nathan MacKinnon is one of the premier playoff performers in NHL history. And he might have 2 MVPs. And he has a Rocket Richard and a Conn Smythe and 2 Stanley Cup rings potentially. It'll be interesting if he doesn't get all of those things where we're at on this conversation. But he's been closing the gap between himself and Connor McDavid. And it's to his credit, but it's also to Connor McDavid's. That gap was significant, right? But Nathan MacKinnon has been gaining on Connor McDavid year after year after year after year. Some seasons more than others, but he has continued to gain on him. I think this is going to be the year, with everything that MacKinnon has done and still has the potential to do. I think we will have to relitigate that conversation and say that Nathan MacKinnon has surpassed Connor McDavid. as the best player in the world. How could you not watch him take that? How could you watch him take that shot last night in that situation with all that was on the line and not say that that's the best player in the world? That's what the best player in the world does. It's outstanding. Nathan MacKinnon last night. And we go to story number 3.
There was too much garbage in front of the net, and if that's the way they were going to play, like we needed to handle some pucks clean, like through traffic and without traffic, and Blackie wasn't doing that. So I felt like this could be an opportunity to spark our group. Maybe we get a heck of a performance out of Wedge, which we did. But he, again, like, if I could have made changes to our lineup with healthy bodies and after the first period, I'd have pulled a whole bunch of guys, not just Blackwood.
To Jared Bednar's point, head coach of the Colorado Avalanche, what happened in the first period last night was not all on Mackenzie Blackwood. But every one of the goals that Mackenzie Blackwood conceded, or the Avalanche by extension conceded, even the one that was overturned, the one where McCarron batted the puck with his hand, every single one of those shots could have and probably should have been saved by Mackenzie Blackwood. The team in front of him did him no favors, but Mackenzie Blackwood was not good last night. And without replacing him with Scott Wedgwood, the Avs do not come back and win. And the question moving forward that I don't think is much of a question, when do we see Mackenzie Blackwood again? It certainly is not going to be game 1. And I won't close the door completely on Mackenzie Blackwood being seen again in these playoffs, but it would take a borderline extraordinary circumstance. This is now the Western Conference Final. The Avs are 8 wins away. Wedgwood has been the better goaltender this season and in these playoffs, and he was the better goaltender last night for the Colorado Avalanche. He should be in the goal game 1, and I don't see a reason right now to go back to Mackenzie Blackwood. But Mackenzie Blackwood, he's under contract moving forward past this season. This is not the Avs being done with Mackenzie Blackwood, but we've had enough. We've had enough evidence. We've had enough games here to say that if the Avs need a win to take a series lead, to break a series tie, to close out a series, Scott Wedgwood should be the guy in goal. If Mackenzie Blackwood is called upon again, I do not think he will be as bad as he was in the first period. But there is a better goaltender on this Avs team, and I think now is the time to just let Scott Wedgwood ride it out. If he falters, then okay, that's different. But Scott Wedgwood, I think, has earned the game 1 net against either Anaheim or Vegas. And as long as he plays up to the level he's played at for most of this season, the vast majority of this season, shouldn't be much of a thought to get Mackenzie Blackwood a game. That's fine the first couple rounds. These next 2 rounds have final in them. Some final decisions need to be made here. And one of the final decisions is it's Scott Wedgwood's net. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show, or just your thoughts on the Avs, because that's what the 3 stories were about. Coming up next, we have an alleged schedule leak and why this schedule might be the worst possible outcome for the Denver Broncos. That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. So you remember earlier when I said, oh, certainly the Avs will not have to wait as long to get their Western Conference Final Series going as they had to wait for the Wild Series. I was wrong. In fact, the Avs will be waiting the same amount of time, the exact same amount, because the NHL literally, as I went to break, sent me an email. Yes, just me, nobody else. Don't look at social media. Nobody else is posting it. This is just exclusive for me. Okay, they emailed everybody. The Avs, regardless of the opponent, regardless of whether Vegas wins tonight or we have a Game 7, the Western Conference Final is going to start on Wednesday. It will be exactly the same amount of time the Avalanche had to wait to play the Minnesota Wild. And the reason for that is not really even Vegas and Anaheim. It's Montreal, Buffalo, which is just underway. We should keep an eye on that, see how that's going. But, yeah, it's set in stone. The scenario that the NHL sent out was there's no alternate scenario if Vegas wins tonight, if Anaheim wins tonight. Regardless of when the Anaheim-Vegas series ends, they will play, the winner of that series will play the Avalanche on Wednesday night. Now, they can alternate the nights. So, as an aside, so I had to be very judicious with the word wild in this last series because it gets confusing. I'm going to have to be judicious with night or nights if it ends up being Vegas. They can alternate days that the East and the West will play, so the Avs will drop the puck at 6 o'clock every night, at least for the first 3 games. For the first 3 games, and then the last 3 games potentially. But for some reason, Tuesday, May 26th is TBD. There's probably a good reason for that. I don't have the time nor the inclination to find out why. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But it will be Wednesday night, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday. That is the schedule for the Avs, and I would just probably bank on being 6 o'clock. I think it's just because, well, I actually have no idea why. That Tuesday game, it'd be weird if it wasn't at 6. I guess it's the one day that the East and the West could overlap. But that's what the NHL just sent out moments ago. Here's where I do my Jerry Seinfeld impression. If you remember the episode where he and Elaine went down to Florida, and the bar was in Elaine's back and all that kind of stuff. When Jerry's like, well, today's almost over, and the last day we're here is going to be quick because we got to go to the airport, and it's really only 5 days. Here's where you could kind of do that with this schedule. We got Saturday and Sunday coming up. You got plenty on your social calendar to occupy your time on Saturday and Sunday. It's when the wait is all during the week that it becomes a tad problematic. But like today's almost over. Today is probably over. It's past 5 o'clock. You're probably done with work. Tomorrow's a Friday, which is basically the weekend. You got plans. Then you got Saturday, Sunday. It's really only like 2 days until we're talking about the Avs playing hockey again. So I don't like it. Somebody like me who kind of whole identity is built around the whole sports thing, don't love waiting 6 days. Oh boy. But there's that. Speaking of schedule, so the NFL schedule releases coming up in a little more than a half an hour. You can listen to the NFL schedule release show on Extra Sports 1300 if you're so inclined. But Ray unearthed a reported leak of the Broncos schedule. And I will have him go through the games for you. This is only an alleged leak. This is not official. The only thing we have actually that's official is the Monday night opener. Everything else
And
could
Black
be.
Friday.
Did the NFL actually confirm Black Friday?
Oh, you're right. Apologies.
I think that was a reported too. But I feel like the primetime schedule, the hit rate on those is usually pretty good. It's like, when do the Browns and Jaguars play? Could be week 11, could be week 2. Nobody really cares.
Mhm.
And that's not information that we want to all find out. So I would be quite surprised if it's not Denver, Pittsburgh on Black Friday, and if the Broncos aren't hosting on Christmas.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised.
That was the other leak. We just didn't know who they were supposedly playing. So, what?
Well, Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo. You did say that. When I saw it, it was just Broncos were playing at home. That is another leak that has happened later that said Buffalo, which that'd be awesome. Chiefs reportedly are playing the Bills on Thanksgiving, and that'll be an awesome game.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is, all the disclaimers aside, this is an alleged leak of the Broncos schedule. Will you we know week 1 in Kansas City, Monday Night Football. Give me the next 4 games after that, Ray, if you would.
Home opener will be against the Jaguars.
Okay.
Then the Rams in Denver, Sunday Night Football, allegedly. And then they will be going to San Francisco to play the Niners.
And then the next week?
They will be staying in California and go to LA for the Chargers.
Okay. Home road is somewhat relevant, but what I want to focus on is the 5 opponents that the Broncos have to start this season. Allegedly. If that's the way, because the Broncos overall have a pretty middle of the road in terms of win percentage from last year, there's a pretty they have a pretty middling schedule, right? But here's the big swing one. They got 2 games against Kansas City. If Kansas City is back to close to what they were 2 years ago instead of last year, that greatly changes how good or bad the Broncos schedule is. If the Chiefs are a 6-win football team again,
but they got Justin Fields. So
but they have Justin Fields. That's my point. That's what I'm saying. In fact, I told you during the break, if Mahomes plays week 1, the Broncos will go into Arrowhead and beat them. But if Justin Fields is the starter, then Justin Fields and the Chiefs will prevail, and Patrick Mahomes will never get his job back. Same thing we saw in St. Louis all those years ago with Trent Green and Kurt Warner. But in all seriousness, I think most people think that the Chiefs are going to be closer to what they were 2 years ago instead of last year, right? Arrowhead, always difficult place to play. I don't care what time of year it is. But more so that the Chiefs are expected to bounce back. Then you have a playoff team in Jacksonville. Then you have a playoff team, a Super Bowl contender to boot in the Rams. You play another team that I think most people, or at least I believe, is going to have a bounce back season, the San Francisco 49ers, and then you play a divisional opponent with the Chargers. What am I missing?
Can I just go one game next? Because it adds with what you have.
Okay.
After the Chargers, Seattle, Thursday night.
I am telling you, considering who the Broncos have on their schedule, this would be the nightmare of a start to the season. And we can only go off of what we feel about these teams right now, right? I would say the one I would be most confident in is beating Jacksonville at home week 2. right? Would that be the one that you feel most confident about? You're giving me a weird look. Like, no. What would be the one that you would think would be a more likely win than that one
in LA
against the Chargers?
Mm-hmm. The Jags came to Denver last year and beat them.
I think Jacksonville is a prime regression candidate.
Wow. Okay.
I do not think that the Jaguars are going to pick up where they left off or build on it. I think they're going to regress.
Travis Hunter back.
They still don't have it right with him.
Yeah.
They keep blank footing around and like, oh, he's going to play a little more corner. Just make him a corner. Just do the thing you were supposed to do when you drafted him. But anyway, I'm very excited to see Travis Hunter healthy, and I do think he'll play both sides of the ball, and I'm not saying he should only play corner, but make him a corner who chips in every now and again on the offensive side. That's the way it always should have been, and the Jaguars are just wasting time gradually moving him in that direction. So, okay, so you say, fine. You say the Chargers game at SoFi is one that you would have more confidence in the Broncos winning.
Yes.
Here is my bigger point. It is not crazy to imagine that the Broncos could be 1-4, 1-5 to start the season. Do I think that they will be? No, I don't. But the NFL is basically stacking most of the Broncos' most difficult opponents at the beginning of the season if this alleged leak is true. Mm-hmm. That is a gauntlet to begin the season for a team that, history is not kind to teams that lose in a conference championship game. You may wrap yourself in the idea that Bo Nix didn't play in that game, and if he did, we would be talking about a Super Bowl hangover and not a AFC Championship game hangover. But the fact of the matter is, teams that go deep in the postseason till the Final Four and lose at one of those points don't tend to fare very well the next year. Not saying the Broncos can't buck that trend, but with that schedule, it's going to be hard for them to do it.
No, that's a tough one.
That is a really difficult schedule. And so I've been accused of being a little doom and gloom sometimes when it comes to the Denver Broncos, which is fine, whatever. I can't win. If I praise them, then I'm a homer. If I am critical of them, then I'm just biased against them because I grew up rooting for Kansas City. And it's fine. I've chosen this life. And, I have my crying time in my car right after the show is over. I'm good. If it's not 1-5, what is the acceptable record for the Denver Broncos? Understanding, drawing a comparison between themselves and the Avalanche, expectations are very high. It doesn't take long for fans to turn on their team, right? What is an acceptable record where, one, Broncos fans don't start to turn against this team, and two, that you still believe that everything, because you're very high on the Broncos, yes, Ray?
Yeah.
Okay. What record can they have after those games and you still be like, everything that I think they can do this season is still possible?
3-3, 500.
That's not going to be easy to accomplish.
No, it's not.
If that is indeed their schedule. It's not going to be easy.
Because after that, it definitely lightens up, but allegedly.
And I know, and here's the counter. The Broncos seem to go on a run, right? That's been a staple of the Sean Payton Broncos. They go on like a mid-season, ironically or coincidentally, because ironically is not the right word to use in this instance. It's usually around the time after the Broncos happen to play Seattle, if this leak is correct.
Right.
They usually go on these mid-season runs, right? So they could go on another one, but you would be a little pie in the sky, a little bit ridiculous if you went Broncos are going to win every game after that from here on out, right?
Yeah,
and I'm
no.
not saying you are, but I'm just saying that's a lot of heavy lifting that you have to do. You know, the Broncos went on that run 2 years ago, right? And just squeaked into the playoffs because they got to play Carson Wentz and the Kansas City Chiefs the final week of the season. Last year, they used that midseason run to win the division.
Mm-hmm.
If the schedule sets up this way, they may need that annual midseason run like they did 2 years ago just to get in.
So do you want to hear what the midseason run could be, possibly?
Go ahead, because one of them is going to have to be that Buffalo game,
Well,
right?
here's
Or
the
is
thing.
that later in the... No, I
No,
guess
that's
they would have
Christmas.
enough time. They would have enough time before that.
But-
Go ahead.
So Seattle, then at
This is
Arizona-
the entire schedule that somebody is holding up on social media saying this is it. Okay.
right.
All right, go ahead.
So after Seattle, week
Okay.
6, week 7, they go to Arizona.
Okay.
Here's
Bounce back.
there's a bounce back, but then the Chiefs go to Denver, week 8.
No, I think that the Broncos will at least split with Kansas
Okay.
City this year. I mean,
So-
that's okay. That could be a win.
And then go to Carolina,
Okay.
and then they're bye. So can they go on a 3-game winning streak and then go
into
to
the bye. Yes.
And then after the bye, they get Fernando Mendoza and the Raiders. Well,
We
maybe
think
Kirk Cousins. Hopefully
Kirk Cousins.
Mendoza.
Kirk Chains. So they would have, and then what's the next game? Where's the next one where you're like, after that? How many games? So
I mean,
we're at 4.
Pittsburgh is
4 very winnable games.
4 win. Pittsburgh, I'm not going to
Okay.
make a decision until I see what my quarterback situation is.
Okay, fair enough.
Dolphins, Jets, Geno Smith going to bring them to the promised land. Raiders again, and then the Bills. So up until Christmas, could they go on a dominant run?
They could. With that schedule, they absolutely could. So that's what I'm saying. It evens out in the end, right? The Broncos have a middle of the road schedule based on the win percentage of their future opponents. Last year, it's all very, Christopher Nolan mind-bending tenant inception stuff when we talk about strength of schedule. So very difficult, alleged start to the season, but very soft after that for the most part, other than a couple of a big time matchup with Kansas City, which I do think they could win in Denver, but that's a big time matchup. Buffalo on Christmas will be a big time matchup. Here's what the Kansas City Chiefs allegedly have to start the season. The Broncos game, obvi. Colts, the very next week. Dolphins, Raiders, bye week, Chargers at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then their schedule gets tough for 2 weeks, going to Seattle and to Denver. And then they get the Jets at home and they go to Atlanta, followed by a home game against the Cardinals. So comparing these two, is there a chance by week 8
that
the Chiefs are going to be more than 2 games up on the Denver Broncos in the division?
Yeah. There's a good chance. So
and that would make for very tense days, the back half of the schedule for the Denver Broncos.
You're basically saying week 1 is a must win for Denver.
Yeah, week 1 must wins. Love that. That's perfect. No, I think like the season is long. And it's not like being down by multiple games in the division is not a deficit that you can't overcome. You could certainly overcome it, especially with the schedule that the Broncos have. Allegedly after that. I'm just saying, I know how this market works. I know how Broncos country operates. That the two leaks of the Chiefs and the Broncos schedule, if those are true, it is going to be very rough early going for the Denver Broncos and Broncos country this season.
Do you want to hear the final two?
For the Broncos?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pats are week 17. And then
with Josh McDaniels as their interim head coach.
Yeah, exactly. And then Chargers, which hopefully by then
if the Broncos need that game, they're going to win that game.
Yeah.
I believe that. Well, barring obviously injuries all around, we get it.
Yeah.
But the Broncos, if they needed that win for something, they would get it.
So do you want to go down the list, see what your record would be for the Broncos?
No, we could do that tomorrow.
Tomorrow once official.
My point is, if this is the leak, or this leak is correct, that is maybe the worst possible setup the first month and a half of the season for the Denver Broncos. It's going to be very difficult for them to get out of the gate strong.
The more I look at it, I'm like, wow, that is tough.
It's a tough schedule. And I'm not, I would say at best, you would say 3 wins.
Yeah.
At best. And to your point, if they got out of that part of their schedule at 3-3 with what they have set up after that, then you're over the moon if you're a Broncos fan.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether Kansas City gets out of the gate, 5-6-0. You'd be fine with that because you'd see what's ahead and you'd be like, the Broncos are going to make up ground, no doubt about it.
Right.
If you get 3-3, but it's like that old saying, you can't win anything the first month of the season, but you can lose things. The Broncos, the way the schedule allegedly is setting up, is the Broncos are going to might have to dig out of a bit of a hole to begin this season.
A bit.
A bit of a hole. 719-247-1313, the actual true NFL schedule released straight from the league itself. It's coming up at 6 o'clock. One last segment, you and I together on this Thursday here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. confirmed by the Denver Broncos themselves. How are you doing schedule release? And are all the teams, Ray, putting out their schedules now?
I've
Go
only
to
seen.
another team.
I'll do that right now.
Anybody. Chargers, preferably.
All right, let me see.
Broncos have released their video.
Yes, they just.
But so
Chargers.
there's a schedule release. So what are we doing here? Still listen to Extra Sports 1300 at 6 for the official. We don't know that the Broncos are actually right. They might have the wrong information.
And it's so funny because they're posting the video, but they're saying the NFL schedule release as at 8 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. But
Weird. Good job. A rare misstep by the NFL, I suppose. But the nightmare scenario to start the season is afoot.
Yep.
It's happening for the Broncos. Chiefs, Jaguars. Remind me, Rams.
Yep.
Niners.
Seattle.
Niners, Chargers, Seattle.
Seattle.
And everything out. And then the Charmin soft, we think, schedule in the middle.
2-ply.
The soft belly of the soft midsection of the Broncos schedule. It's not an ideal start to the season. I don't care. I know the season is long, a lot can happen, but that's not a preferable schedule out of the gate for the Denver Broncos. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. We also need to see. Did you see what the Broncos did? I don't want to spoil it, but did you, just yes or no, did you see what they did for the Patriots?
No.
Okay. I don't want to spoil it. Everybody can look if they want to, and we'll reconvene tomorrow and figure that whole thing out. But the official schedule release, basically everything you've seen on social media confirmed, coming up in about 8 minutes on the Extra Sports 1300. What was the other thing I was going to do? What?
Text.
Oh, yes. Text.
Okay. From Albert. Glad to hear Ray understands the importance of Justin Fields in your life. Now explain to him the never-ending man crush on Carmelo.
Fun fact. Ray probably doesn't remember this. When Ray sat down to interview with me for the job, I asked him his biggest weakness, and then I asked him how he felt about Justin Fields.
Exactly.
And he answered, if memory serves, you said Pat Surtain is a really good player, but at the time the Denver Broncos needed a quarterback, so that should have taken precedent. And if Justin Fields would have just gone to a good place, he would have been successful as a quarterback. I believe that's word for word what you had said.
I think so, because if I remember correctly, that was the year he was rumored to go to Pittsburgh.
There you go.
So I was like all in. All right.
Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Rooting for Justin Fields. You're hired.
Exactly. From the 719. Here we go. I love how everyone thinks the Steelers are an easy win every year, and every year the Steelers somehow end up with a winning record. The Broncos versus Steelers game is also a primetime game in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh doesn't lose home primetime games.
Ray, are you going to rebuke that? Because you said that the Steelers don't play well in primetime.
But again, that was Mike Tomlin's record. How's Mike McCarthy with primetime?
I feel like there's more of a case to say that it will not be as good.
No, that's fair. I mean, when he said every year the Steelers somehow end up.
No, and that's absolutely right. And I am, for the record, I'm believing more in Ray's team than Ray is.
Okay. I'm not.
It's fine. Nobody's listening. No Steelers fans are gonna show up at what's that? The Steelers police is
I won't-
after you.
Reboot it. I think they'll do okay, but I won't go as strong as don't overlook them.
But the texture is exactly right. But yet we do it every year. You know why? Because we look at the Steelers and go, man, that's what we do.
Yeah.
But yes, but here's the ultimate test, and this is why they brought in Mike McCarthy, because he is the most surefire way to continue Mike Tomlin's legacy than if they would have went with an up-and-coming coordinator, right? We will see. But every year, I truly believe it in my bones that the Steelers aren't that great of a team. But the texter's right, though.
Hey, Will Howard's going to take them all the way.
See, that's the key, though. If Aaron Rodgers shows up, then it's worse. Well, if Will Howard plays, then watch out, NFL. That'll do it for us. We got plenty more time to talk about the Avs. NFL schedule release next on Extra Sports 1300.